Please be seated. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. I should say gentlemen. While you're getting settled in, I'm going to ask my morning questions. If your answer is yes to any of the questions, please raise your hand. During the overnight recess, did any of you have any conversations amongst yourselves or with anybody else about the case? No hands are being raised. Did any of you read or listen to any radio, television, newspaper reports about the case? No hands are being raised. Did any of you use an electronic device to get on the internet to do any independent research about the case, people, places, things, terminology? No hands are being raised. And finally, did any of you read or create any emails, text messages, Twitters, tweets, blogs, or social networking pages about the case? No hands are being raised. Thank you very much. Ms. Gentile, good morning. I'm going to remind you that you're still under oath. When you took your oath yesterday, it remains in effect. Mr. West, you may proceed.
Does this need to be here? Can it be up here? I'm sorry, if we could just need a little space. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yesterday, we were talking about an interview that you gave to Mr. Crump over the telephone.
Yes.
And we had focused on a part of that interview where you were telling Mr. Crump what Trayvon Martin said that you heard, "Why you following me?" is what you said that he said, correct?
Yes.
And that the first thing that you told Mr. Crump that you heard from Mr. Zimmerman was, "What are you talking about?" Remember saying that yesterday?
Yes.
And then that changed to, "What are you doing around here?"
Your Honor, I'm going to object as to
Rephrase as to the word changed.
Pardon me?
Rephrase your question, the objections to the word changed.
The first time you answered the question, "What did you hear?" you said that the other man, Mr. Zimmerman, said, what are you talking about?" Remember that being your answer?
I don't remember that, yes. I don't remember, but yes.
You saw that on the deposition and you agreed that's what you'd said.
Yes.
And then when asked again, or when you were talking about that same thing again, instead of saying, "What are you talking about?" it became, "What you doing around here?" Correct?
Yes.
And then at your deposition, when I took your deposition, you said in the letter that you
Your Honor,
wrote...
I'm going to object again as to restating what occurred yesterday as opposed to asking a question.
Okay, it's a preliminary question. I'll allow it. From an overnight recess, just to set where we are.
In your deposition, you said, in fact, that in the letter that you wrote to Sabrina Fulton, you said, "What you doing around here," was what you attributed to Mr. Zimmerman.
Yes.
At your deposition is when we learned for the first time that you had written a letter, correct?
Yes.
You had never said that in any of your other statements.
No.
The letter was the one that you and your friend put together, the one that you gave to Ms. Fulton on March 19th.
Yes.
And you had never mentioned that to anyone prior to you mentioning it to us in Miami in March of this year.
It was a personal letter for her.
Of course, I know that's what you said. You didn't even tell the prosecutor about it?
No.
You met with the prosecutor, though, in Jacksonville in early August, correct?
Yes.
And that's when you told him, "Oh, I didn't go to the hospital. I lied about that."
Yes.
But you didn't tell him you'd written the letter?
No.
May I have the letter, please? I can look real good. marked as defendant CC for identification. Let me approach you for a moment and show you this letter. It's a copy, of course. Would you take a look at it? And
Judge, if the intent is to introduce it, I have no objection to it being introduced as evidence.
Are you seeking to have it introduced?
yes.
Okay. It'll come into evidence as defendants next, I don't, 17, thank you.
Should we mark it now?
You can have, Sarah.
Okay. Ms. Gentile, let me show you the letter. It's now marked as Defendant's Exhibit 17. And let me then ask you a few questions about that.
I'm going to object to this witness, the letter. There's a reason why, and I don't want to make a speaking objection, but
Okay, well, please approach.
Ms. Gentile, would you take a look at that copy of the letter, and let me ask you a couple of questions about it. Do you recognize that letter as being one that you said earlier was prepared to be given to Ms. Fulton?
Yes.
And that letter was prepared with the assistance of a friend of yours named Francine Serve?
Yes.
And you and Ms. Serve talked about what you wanted to be in the letter, and then she helped write it in a way that was legible, correct?
Yes.
But the contents of the letter are yours.
Yes.
Are you able to read that copy well enough that you can tell us if it's in fact the same letter?
No.
Are you unable to read that at all?
Some of them I do not.
Can you read any of the words on it?
I don't understand. Cursive. I don't read cursive.
Did you sign it at the bottom?
Yes.
What name did you use?
Diamond Eugene.
I'm sorry.
Diamond Eugene.
Downey?
Diamond Eugene.
Are you saying that
I have no objection. This thing keeps flashing right here on the computer. I wonder if we could do something. I don't know if it's
Without
distracting.
putting the screen up, can we take the flashing off?
that's your name that you signed at the bottom?
Yes.
But it's not actually your name.
No.
That's a name that you made up,
That's my nickname.
but your last name isn't Eugene.
That's my mother.
Right.
Last
So
name.
you signed it Diamond Eugene so as not to use your real name?
Yes.
I'll read the letter then. Can you not read this here?
Yes.
What does that say?
March the 19th, 2012.
And can you read this at the bottom?
Thank you.
And then you signed your name.
Yes.
And you can't read any of the words here?
Not all of them.
But you can read typewritten words, just not cursive?
Yeah.
Subject to correction by the state, the letter reads as follows. I was on the phone when Trayvon decided to go to the corner store. It started to rain, so he decided to walk through another complex because it was raining too hard. He started walking, then noticed someone was following him. Then he decided to find a shortcut.
There's an objection here.
Should be then, you stated he.
Would you like to read it?
I don't mind, but I don't mind you reading, I think.
Okay, direct your comments to me, please. Go ahead and read and correct the sentence.
I'll start it.
Okay.
I should take the podium probably. I was on the phone when Trayvon decided to go to the corner store. It started to rain, so he decided to walk through another complex because it was raining too hard. He started walking, then noticed someone was following him. So I'll read that again. I was on the phone when Trayvon decided to go to the corner store. It started to rain, so he decided to walk through another complex because it was raining too hard. He started walking, then noticed someone was following him. Then he decided to find a shortcut because the man wouldn't follow him. Then he said the man didn't follow him again. Then he looked back and saw the man again. The man started getting closer. Then Trayvon turned around and said, "Why are you following me?" Then I heard him fall. Then the phone hung up. I called back and text, no response. In my mind, I thought it was just a fight. Then I found out this tragic story. Thank you, Diamond Eugene. Is that the letter that you and Ms. Serve prepared to give to Sabrina Fulton?
Yes.
And contrary to what you said at the deposition, this letter does not, in fact, contain any response that the person gave to Trayvon Martin when he said, "Why are you following me?"
Yes.
Further, you say that you thought this was just a fight.
Yes.
This was the letter that you gave to Ms. Fulton on the same day that you talked with her and told her basically what happened.
Yes.
And you told her, I take it, then the same thing that you said here, or did you tell her more?
Tell her more.
Did you tell her that the man that Trayvon said, "Why are you following me?" to responded in some way?
Yes.
And what did you tell her that he said?
Repeat your question again.
Mm-hmm. Did you tell Ms. Fulton what the man said when Trayvon Martin said, "Why you following me?" Did you say to Ms. Fulton what the man said in response?
Yes.
And what did you tell her?
What you doing around here?
I'm sorry.
What are you doing around here?
So that's what you told Ms. Fulton.
Yes, in the car. Yes.
And you're sure you actually had a conversation with Ms. Fulton?
Not for that long. Not for that long.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. I'm not challenging that, but you're saying that you had a conversation about the facts of the case, if you will.
Yes.
Correct? And those facts included you saying that Mr. Zimmerman said, "What you doing around here?"
Yes.
You do acknowledge, though, the first time that you were asked that question in your interview with Mr. Crump later that day, your response was that Mr. Zimmerman said, "What are you talking about?"
Yes.
Are you sure those were the words that Trayvon Martin said, or could you have been sort of trying to figure out what was said and that's what you came up with?
I'm sure.
Which are you sure about? That he said,
Why
"What are you
following
talking
me?
about?" or "Why are you following me?"
Why are you following me, bro?
But-
Why are you following me? What Trayvon said, why are you following me for?
But you first said in response to that question, "What are you talking about?" was the answer.
I cannot hear you, sir. I cannot hear you, sir.
Your testimony today is what you heard on the phone the man say that George Zimmerman was, "What are you doing around here?"
Yes.
And in the first statement that you made to Mr. Crump in his interview of you, you said what Mr. Zimmerman's response was, "What are you talking about?"
Yes.
It was in the interview with Mr. Crump that you said you thought this was a racial thing.
He had asked me if it was a racial thing.
What did he say?
Do you think this situation was a racial thing? And I had
Mr. Crump asked you that on the recording.
yes.
Have you had a chance to look at the transcript or listen to the recording? Did you ever hear him say that on the recording?
Darrell, I'm going to get to the compound
Yeah, you need to
questions.
break your question up.
Sure. Do you remember him saying that specifically to you during that phone interview?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a transcript of the recording or ever listened to the recording to know whether or not, in fact, it's there?
Yes.
And is it there?
No.
But your comment is that you think it's a racial thing.
Yes.
So in other words, Mr. Crump didn't record that part of the conversation where he asked you if you thought it was a racial thing, but only recorded your answer when you said you think it's a racial thing.
Objection as to what Mr. Crump did or did not do.
Sustained. She can't testify what he thought. She can only testify as to what she heard. Your question is, did Mr. Crump ever do that? If she's not around him, there's no way for her to know if he did that when she's not there. She could testify as to what she heard.
Yes, what I'm trying to, what I'm focusing in on is this. You believe that Mr. Crump asked you in that recorded interview whether you thought it was a racial thing.
Yes. It was true.
And then when you've had a chance to listen to the recording or look at the transcript, you can't find his question anywhere in it.
No.
You have had a chance, though, to review your transcripts or prior statements, haven't you?
Yes.
So you decided it was a racial thing because someone told you it was a racial thing, or you came up with this on your own, or why did you conclude that this was a racial thing?
How the situation happened. How the situation happened
How about what was being said on the news?
on the news. The interview between me and Crump happened before the news even knew about it. Before Nationwide knew about the situation.
So your belief is that you had the interview with Mr. Crump before this story was in the news about George Zimmerman racially profiling and murdering Trayvon Martin.
Yeah.
You'd never heard that before.
I told you I don't watch the news.
Well, how about when you talked with Tracy Martin Did he say, would you please come forward because we are saying this is a racially motivated murder?
No. He just asked me, can I talk to his attorney?
How about when you talked to Ms. Fulton, did she say, would you please come forward and talk to our attorney and record it because we think this is a racially charged event?
No.
And you didn't have any information from the news that this was a racially charged event?
No, I had told you I don't watch the news.
Okay. Are you okay this morning?
Yeah.
You seem so different than yesterday. I'm just checking. Did someone talk with you? Yes. Did someone talk with you last night about your demeanor in court yesterday?
No, I went to sleep.
So your testimony is that you hadn't heard anything on the news about this being a racially charged
I'm
incident.
going to judge to ask an answer. Now he's repeating the answers.
Sustained.
Attorney, may we approach, please?
No.
You didn't know anything about this case on the news following the shooting on February 26th prior to your interview with Mr. Crump on March 19th?
No, sir. I had told you that yesterday. I don't watch the news.
And no one else told you that
No,
there was a
sir.
lot of noise about this being a racially charged event?
No, sir.
So when you answered Mr. Crump's question, that's not on the recording, what you think about it being a racially charged event, you said yes it was.
Yes, sir.
And what did you base your answer that you thought it was a racial thing? What information did you base that on?
Because how the situation happened.
Tell me, what is it about this event specifically that convinced you it was racially based?
Trayvon was being followed. And it was around 7, and it's not that late. And it's in the rain. Like, come on now.
It is in the rain.
It's in the rain. Around it's raining.
All right, so it's raining,
Yes.
and he's out by himself walking around,
Yes.
and
Not walking around, just standing under a shade when it's raining.
what you don't really know what he was actually doing, do you?
Under a shade, yes.
You don't actually know that, do you?
I know when I asked him where he at. He told me he's under a shade in
Right.
another area.
So what you know about this whole event is what Mr. Martin told you and what you interpreted it to mean.
Objection, argumentative. That's the question.
Overruled.
Repeat your question. again.
Sure. That you didn't see anything, you weren't there.
No.
You still don't know where the mail thing is, or where any of the streets are, or where on the map Trayvon Martin was staying, correct?
No.
You don't know how far the man was from him at any given point in time.
He wasn't that far because Trayvon told me that the man was is watching him.
Right. So, before I lose track here, everything that you've told us is based upon whatever Trayvon Martin told you that you can remember,
Yes.
and then what you interpreted it to mean.
Yes.
So when you say it's a racial event,
Yes.
what did he tell you that made you think it was a racial event?
Somebody just watching him, and then he described the person that was watching him and following him, and that was kind of strange. That a person keep watching you and following you,
So he
like
said,
he being stalked,
I'm sorry.
like he's being stalked from that person.
what makes that racial?
That wouldn't make that racial. It was made that racial.
What's one thing about what Trayvon Martin told you that made you think this was racial?
Describing the person.
Pardon me?
Describing the person.
I just didn't...
Describing the person that was watching him and following him.
I see.
Sir.
Describing the person is what made you think it was racial?
Yes.
And that's because he described him as a creepy-ass cracker?
Yes.
So it was racial, but it was because Trayvon Martin put race in this.
No.
You don't think that's a racial comment?
No.
You don't think that creepy-ass cracker is a racial comment?
No.
Well, you didn't mention it in your letter, correct?
That's just a personal letter to the mama.
All right, you didn't tell Ms.
That's just a personal letter to the mother.
You didn't tell Ms. Fulton that the man that was following him was a creepy-ass cracker, did you?
No.
You didn't tell Mr. Crump in the recorded interview that Trayvon Martin described George Zimmerman as a creepy-ass cracker.
No.
And when you met with Mr. Della Rionda for the first time on April 2nd, 2012, you never told him in your interview that Trayvon Martin said a creepy-ass cracker was following him.
No, I did say creepy, sir.
Yes, I agree. You did say creepy.
Yes.
So the reason you didn't say that, though, was because you didn't think it was relevant?
Nobody asked me. You come ask me what exactly that Trayvon said that night about the person that was following him and watching him. That's what you asked me when I met up with you.
So never before I met with you in March did you ever tell anyone exactly what you heard Trayvon Martin say? Correct?
About the person, describing the person?
Yes, in any of the interviews where you were asked what was said, what happened next.
What was said, yes, I did. By describing him, no, I did not. I
You
just
said
said creepy.
Some dude's following.
One at a time, because the court reporter has to take down both voices. If you'll allow her to please finish her answer. Are you finished with your answer?
Yes.
Okay, you may ask your next question.
Of course you wouldn't say it to Sabrina Fulton because it was offensive. Correct?
Yes, that was disrespectful.
Pardon
That
me?
was disrespectful.
Of course
If I
it
say
was.
to
Yes.
him.
You may not consider it a racial comment, but it's
No.
certainly offensive, isn't it?
No,
You don't think calling someone a creepy-ass cracker is offensive?
no,
So, but you specifically chose not to tell Ms. Fulton that's what Trayvon Martin said,
no,
because you thought it would hurt her feelings, didn't you?
no,
You didn't think that would bother her if you said that her son described the man that was following him in a car on the phone
I didn't think
was
that
a
was
creepy-ass
important.
cracker?
I did not think that was important.
Not important enough to put in the letter, and not important enough to tell her.
Objection has been answered.
Can we move on to another topic?
Just to be clear then, you didn't include that in the letter, and you didn't include it in the conversation you had on March 19th with Ms. Fulton.
No,
And when you were interviewed by Mr. Crump later that day, you didn't say it.
no,
And then you were interviewed but you did say to Mr. Crump that you thought the event itself was a racial thing.
yes. He had asked me, and I said yes.
And I was asking you then, What made you think that? And then you were saying just because of the description, is that what you're saying?
Yes,
The description being there was a man on the phone in a car watching him.
yes.
And you met,
follow
you,
him.
pardon me?
And follow him.
Right, so you took that to be racial
Yes.
without any additional information.
No.
On April 2nd, you had an opportunity to meet with the prosecutor, correct?
Yes.
Up until that point, you had never spoken with law enforcement.
No.
Even following your interview with Mr. Crump, you didn't then go to the police.
No.
Even after hearing part of your interview on national television, or hearing about it, you didn't go to the police.
No. The parents did not know.
Would you speak
By
up?
the parents did not know my real name. They only knew me as Diamond.
But they had your phone number, right?
Yes.
Because there were text and phone calls.
Between who?
You and Miss Fulton.
No.
She sent you a text.
That was March the 19th.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
After March 19th, you didn't go to law enforcement, and law enforcement never contacted you, correct?
Correct.
But Ms. Fulton had your phone number,
Yes.
so she could have given that to the police.
Yes.
She could have given it to the Sanford Police Department, couldn't she?
Yeah.
Object as to what somebody else could have or not done.
Sustained.
She didn't have your real name because you'd lied about that, but she did have your phone number.
Yes.
And in between March 19th and April 2nd, nobody from the police department called you.
I can't recall, but no, because my phone was,
I can't recall.
I can't recall, my phone was off. I shut it off.
Did you shut your phone off, are you saying, between March 19th
No, I
and...
shut it off. It was a lot of phone calls.
I'm sorry.
It was a lot of phone
Was it
calls.
disconnected?
No. I shut it off.
You turned it off.
I turned it off.
How long did you leave your phone off?
In a day, it would be 3 hours or 4 hours.
Well, when you turned it back on, you would get voicemails, wouldn't you?
Yes.
You'd get any text messages.
I ain't getting no text message.
But you would, if someone had sent you one after you turned the phone on, you get your text messages.
Yes.
And when you turned your phone back on between March 19th and April 2nd, there weren't any text messages from Ms. Fulton telling you to please go to the police?
No.
Or any messages from law enforcement saying, would you please
By me
contact?
watching the television, I thought the police was already in the case.
Say that again.
By me watching television, I thought the police already knew about the case.
So when you, I didn't think you watched television, I'm sorry.
That was before
Mhm.
March the 19th. When March the 20th, that's when I started watching the television. That's when my voice became on television. That's when I started paying attention to the news.
So on March 20th, when they had the press conference about you,
No,
is
I
when
didn't
you...
see the press conference. They only showed half it, saying Trayvon Martin was on the phone with the final moments.
Did the news then you're talking about that had your voice on it, was the recording made by ABC News?
Yes, I think.
Did you talk with somebody from ABC News separately from your interview with Mr. Crump?
Yes.
And when and where was that, please?
I don't remember, but it was by phone.
I don't remember that.
I don't remember, it was by phone.
And when, approximately? After March 19th was the day that you were interviewed. When did you, after that, talk with the reporter from ABC News?
I don't remember.
Roughly.
Before I even talked to the state attorney.
Sometime between March 19th, when you gave your interview to Mr. Crump,
Yes.
and you didn't know you were being recorded then by ABC, correct?
No.
But after that, though, you had a separate phone interview with ABC?
Yes.
Was it the next day, the day after, a week later? Any idea?
No.
And who was it that you talked with?
I don't know his name.
Did he know your name?
He didn't know my real name.
What, did you give him a name?
He had told me.
I can't hear the witness. Would the court ask the
Could you
witness?
speak up a little bit, please?
He had told me he had got my number. Well, she had got my number from the ABC reporter. She had texted me saying she wanted to know about Trayvon, what kind of person he was. Can I have a talk with her boss, I think, about Trayvon, what kind of person he was?
So you got a text from somebody where the media wanted to talk with you further.
It was an ABC woman.
Right.
It was an ABC woman.
And then you gave...
She had called, she texted.
And then you agreed to have a separate recorded interview.
Yes.
And do you know the person that interviewed you?
No.
Did you tell them the name Diamond Eugene?
I just told him, he had asked me how, do you want me to call me? He had asked me how he want me to say in the media. I said Dee Dee. That's when Dee Dee started popping up.
So you used the nickname Dee Dee to identify yourself?
Yeah.
Did you tell that person how old you were?
No, he didn't ask me that.
He didn't ask you your real name?
No.
So that was sometime after March 19th, but before April 2nd, correct?
Yes.
And did you have any other interviews with anybody between the ABC interview and April 2nd?
No.
On April 2nd, you were interviewed by Mr. Della Rionda, correct?
Yes, sir.
And there were other agents there with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement?
Yes, sir.
So this was your first interview with law enforcement?
Yes, sir.
When you interviewed with Mr. Crump, you were rushed, you didn't take it seriously, and you weren't under oath, correct?
Yes, sir.
But on April 2nd, you were under oath,
Yes, sir.
and you were being interviewed by the police.
Yes, sir.
And it was recorded.
Yes, sir.
From the state attorney's office, now at this point, the Jacksonville State Attorney's Office was involved in the case as opposed to the Seminole County State Attorney's Office, correct?
Yes, sir.
So Mr. Della Rionda said, I'm from Jacksonville, I'm down here to interview you, and introduced you to the FDLE agents that were present and his state attorney investigator, Mr. Osteen.
Yes, sir.
And you already had met the other people in the room?
What other people?
Well, tell me who else was in the room with you when Mr. Della Rionda was conducting the first interview by law enforcement?
Trayvon's mother.
Trayvon's mother, Sabrina Fulton, correct?
Yes.
Was in the room with you
Yes.
when Mr. Della Rionda was asking you questions for the first law enforcement interview.
Yes, sir.
And where was she in the room?
Beside me.
So she's sitting right beside you as Mr. Della Rionda is asking you questions as his office has been assigned to investigate this alleged murder case.
The objection?
Objection, he keeps repeating the answers that the witness previously gave as opposed to asking another questions, being repetitive, and also the nature of the questions.
Sustained.
May I have a little latitude on cross-examination,
Well,
please?
you're be giving a lot of latitude as you're entitled to. The objection is because you repeat the answer of the last question in your new question. And I think that you're required to just ask a new question. If you want to ask another question that gives an answer, you may do so. But the objection's to continuing to repeat the answer in your new question.
I
So that is
apologize. My
sustained.
effort's to be precise so that the witness knows exactly what we're talking about, but I will try to do it a little differently.
Thank you.